What I'm about to tell you will sound like science fiction, but it isn't. It's real and it actually happened. Toward the end of World War II, a psychologist working with U.S. military intelligence was commissioned to carry out a horrific and very secret experiment. They wanted to create a unique spy who would never be discovered to infiltrate communist cells that they knew existed. A young Marine lieutenant was selected who did not know their plan. During long hypnotic sessions, his personality, his consciousness, was split in two, which we will call Marine A and Marine B. Marine A, once a normal, patriotic man, was turned through hypnotic indoctrination into a passionate communist who spewed Marxist propaganda and believed it. The Marine Corps, to their shame, was in on the plot. To add to his credibility as a communist, they deliberately gave him a dishonorable discharge. Very quickly, he became a card-carrying party member, welcomed by all the targeted cells. But inside his consciousness lived Marine B, a patriotic soldier. Welcome to patterns of supernatural phenomena. Marine B was the deeper personality. He had been trained by hypnotic direction to know all the thoughts and experiences of Marine A. While A was a communist, Marine B was a loyal American, imprinted to say nothing in conscious phases. So all the plotters had to do to get the information they wanted was to hypnotize the whole man. It worked. Getting in touch with B, military intelligence had a direct line into the communist cells. This hypnotic program was carried out by a psychologist named G.H. Estabrooks. He reported what he had done in Science Digest in an article entitled Hypnosis Comes of Age, April 1971, pages 44 to 50. Unfortunately, Dr. Estabrooks does not report what happened to the young Marine after the program was finished. Based on the experience of others, we should assume that he sustained deep psychological damage. Who Estabrooks was and what he did is chronicled in a book entitled The CIA Doctors: Human Rights Violations by American Psychiatrists. The author is Colin A. Ross, M.D. Estabrooks was deeply involved with MKUltra, Projects Bluebird and Artichoke, and much more. He is the only one of the CIA doctors who publicly spoke and wrote about his work, and he did so rather proudly. But this episode is not about all of that. We need to ask a deeper question, and the answer to it is vital. What is wrong with humans that makes us so totally vulnerable to outside control? It's as though we are divided within ourselves. Many years ago, while I was in Vietnam as an Army infantry lieutenant, I had an officer friend, a captain, who liked to drink. One night at our base camp, there was a party. We drove to it in a Jeep. My friend took me along because he knew I didn't drink, so I was his designated driver. When we left the party, as expected, he was very drunk, and his whole personality had changed. When I asked for the keys to the Jeep, he refused to give them. When I insisted, he got in, started the engine, and ordered me to get in. I refused, so he proceeded to try to run me over. Afterward, he didn't remember any of it. He was a very nice man, except when his conscious mind wasn't in control. Then a different person appeared who was full of raging viciousness. A few months later, he lost his command because of his drinking. So what was in control when he was drunk? Just another part of his total personality? Or was it something else living deep inside him, working for his destruction? I'm a mentalist. I'm retired from performing now, but years ago my wife Carol and I toured with a program called Beyond Reality. Because of my interest in mental illusions, I've spent years studying hypnosis, not in order to do it, but to understand the process and power of it. To be under hypnosis means that you are experiencing trance. Trance is the setting aside of the conscious, or what might be called the executive mind, that guides our waking activities so that the subconscious can come to the surface. This is an element of personality within us that, under normal circumstances, remains hidden, while at the same time deeply influencing everything we do. Emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, we're like conjoined twins. Our subconscious is very strange. It remembers everything, often in great detail, that we've heard and seen throughout our lives. While it's an amazing storehouse, it's like a child. It has no ability to make moral, ethical, or complex decisions. It can't even distinguish between what's real and what isn't. It absorbs all information without making valued judgments about any of it. Consequently, it can be easily manipulated and even possessed by outside forces. Dr. Estabrooks possessed the mind of the Marine lieutenant. But here is the striking part. Our subconscious is the seat of creativity and imagination. When a problem is assigned by the conscious mind, the subconscious searches for ways to solve it. All creative problem solvers, whether in the arts, sciences, business, or anywhere, have very active subconscious minds that assist them in finding solutions. A central path directly into the subconscious is through trance. Have you ever been in a trance? Trance isn't going to sleep. Quite the opposite. It's the extreme focus of attention to the point where everything else is excluded. The deeper the focus and concentration, the deeper the trance, and the more the conscious mind is set aside. Today, everyone we see is staring into a cell phone. Is that what you're doing right now? You may not believe it, but to spend hours cell phone immersed is to live in a light trance. Your subconscious mind is absorbing everything it sees and hears from that tiny screen, but it can't distinguish between what's real and what isn't. It accepts TV episodes, violent films, pornography, TikTok reels, everything, the same way it accepts all the rest of your life, as experiences which become submerged memories. Without realizing it, the values taught in those techno-trances mold your self-image, including all of your beliefs and moral choices. Also, of course, they guide your consumer purchases. I talked about that in episode 13 of this series. How powerful is your subconscious? It's well known that through hypnotic direction, it can remove pain from specific parts of your body. It can take control of the autonomic nervous system and stop blood from flowing. The scientists at UCLA have done extensive research into the use of hypnosis instead of drugs during surgery. Through hypnosis, can you be made to do things that you would not do under normal circumstances? Well, most hypnotherapists are quick to say no, but they are wrong. Proof is found in the work of the CIA doctors. The late Dr. Estabrooks publicly claimed to have hypnotically constructed Manchurian candidates by creating multiple personalities in a single individual, all of which were under his control. Hypnotic trance is a path for external forces to control your mind. To understand the power of hypnosis, all we have to do is look at the work of a man named Milton H. Erickson. Dr. Erickson was a psychiatrist who was born in 1901 and passed away in 1980. Arguably, he was the greatest hypnotherapist who has ever lived. Erickson was trained in all the psychiatric schools of his day, but he wasn't happy with any of them. What he didn't believe in was spending hours and years lying on a couch talking about your problems. While he treated some people for long periods of time, his basic approach was to find out where an individual needed to go in order to have a fulfilling life. And then he would decide what barrier was holding them back. His therapies were designed to remove those barriers, and what he did is legendary. A young woman came to him for help. Her problem was that she couldn't form a relationship of trust with any man. Consequently, she couldn't allow herself to fall in love. What she wanted was to be married and have a family, but it just didn't seem possible. Dr. Erickson discovered that she had never had a loving, trusting relationship with an older man. From her earliest childhood, there had been no caring father or father figure in her life. After determining her problem, he began an unusual therapy. Using hypnotic regression over many sessions, Dr. Erickson took this young woman back into her childhood to various normal days of her life. These she lived again as though she were really there. But there was one change. Erickson inserted himself into her subconscious memories. As though it were real, she experienced him coming to visit her. Over time, Erickson built into her the hidden memories of a caring, loving father figure. As the unusual therapy progressed, she found herself able to establish a trusting relationship with a young man that led to marriage and a family. There are many such stories about Dr. Erickson. The following is from the book Uncommon Therapies, The Psychiatric Techniques of Milton H. Erickson, M.D. by J. Haley. Dr. Erickson was brought to a man who was dying of untreatable cancer. He had terrible spasms of pain that were about 10 minutes apart, 24 hours a day, and drugs were not working. The man was in agony. Anticipating the pain was almost as horrible as the pain itself. Erickson taught the man how to do hypnotic time distortion, so it felt like there were much longer periods without pain, and when the spasms came, they were much shorter. Then he taught him amnesia from pain, so that after each spasm, the agony would be forgotten. Consequently, the awful anticipation completely vanished. The patient reported that hypnosis had freed him almost entirely from his suffering. A few weeks later, he died. As much good as hypnosis can do, the potential for evil is far, far greater. Dr. Estabrooks, who knew so much about dark manipulation, warns in his book Hypnotism, published in 1957, about the future rise of mob leaders, despots who would control masses just as Hitler did. And that is exactly what we are seeing today. Powerful, wealthy sociopaths now subliminally control the minds of millions. How does this work? These evil people know the power of media to induce trance. So over and over they plant triggering words into the minds of millions. Every time those words are heard, the same evil emotions arise, along with frustrated desires to take action. As they fester, such desires are easily manipulated. Strengthening their evil control, skilled manipulators of mass trance can even create false memories. Research has proven that through hypnotic trance, as much as a year later, triggering words will cause a subject to obey previously implanted orders. These trance slaves will remember and believe only the false memories that a hypnotic director has placed within them. In this way, Any lie will be accepted without question, even if it goes against the actual experience and history of an individual. Have you known someone whose personality has been radically altered over the past several years? Do they spew fear, hate, and rage toward other groups in ways they never did before? If so, that individual is under the control of subliminal hypnotic power. Of course, they would swear by heaven above that this is not so. Their altered consciousness comes from seeing and hearing the same messages and images, both open and hidden, repeated over and over. It comes from sharing those messages and images in a collective experience with many other people. Hypnotic subliminal influence in media has a long history. Why do I know this is true? Let me tell you a story. Many years ago, there was a great uproar about subliminal messages in advertising. These were messages that supposedly appeared so quickly that the conscious mind would never see them, but would enter the subconscious, influencing the purchase of products. I didn't really believe any of it. How could such a thing be done? Then I had a very weird experience that I doubt anyone else has ever had. I had created a major TV series for ABC, and I was the executive producer. It was entitled Gabriel's Fire and starred James Earl Jones. This was an important production, and we wanted only outstanding work to appear on the screen. It came time to create the title sequence that would be used each week to introduce the show and our stars. Instead of producing it ourselves, we employed a major Hollywood production house that specialized in television commercials. This group was very creative and responsible for some of the biggest commercials on the air at the time. We gave them access to our footage and the freedom to do whatever they wanted. Several weeks later, I got a rough cut of their work to view and approve. Alone in my office, I watched it a number of times, and it was excellent. Nevertheless, something about it deeply disturbed me. I just couldn't put my finger on it. I don't know why, but I decided to view it frame by frame. When I came to the face of our star, Mr. Jones, I was horrified by what appeared on a few frames. They had turned his face into the face of a demon, but the image flashed past so quickly that it would never be seen by the conscious mind. It was entirely subliminal. I would not have discovered it if I hadn't examined each single frame. Needless to say, I had a very interesting conversation with those people. They were shocked that I had found what they did and told me that they were just being creative. Really. The image was removed, but I was left with a disturbing question. What other evil images were they planting in their commercials? This was in 1990, at the very beginning of computerization in film. Unfortunately, I could not make or keep a copy of what they did. Given the exponential growth of technology, what could be happening right now? And with the emergence of more and more sophisticated AI, what's going to happen in the near future that will deeply control the subconscious minds of millions? During this period, vast internet mobs have formed. The collective subconscious of a mob, large or small, is even more vulnerable and deadly than that of individuals. Dr. Estabrooks wrote that one of the greatest dangers is the sense of omnipotence, his word, that hypnotically controlled individuals and mobs always feel. Like a massive swarm of little gods, they know that they are right and obey their leaders without question, believing that every evil thing they do and say is ultimately righteous. Mind slaves always insist that they are totally free. No rational argument will awaken them from a hellish trance. But we need to go even deeper, to the ultimate source of this arrogant omnipotence. The scientific materialist who believes only what can be tested by physical observation is stuck in a frustrating conundrum. How do we observe anything? Obviously through our consciousness. But scientists can't even agree on the source of human consciousness. There is no way for them to observe its formation. All they can see are the effects. What are these blind researchers doing now? Working to create their idea of consciousness in AIs. What kind of hellish reality will that breed? Imagine the omnipotence of an AI mob that views humans as expendable trash. A tsunami of evil is rising. The first waves are sweeping over the world. Much worse is coming. Do you think all of this evil is of purely human origin? If you do, you're giving humans far too much credit for creativity. Look at quantum mechanics. There are other dimensions of reality. In at least one of those dimensions lives a horde of evil non-human beings. For eons they have entered and controlled much of our existence, bringing death and destruction. The Bible is clear. At the pinnacle of this horde is an ultimate master of hypnotic power, a being who knows the vulnerability of humans because he helped create that vulnerability. Nevertheless, the ultimate responsibility for this hell on earth belongs to us. It is my belief that in the Garden of Eden, when the first two people made in God's image chose to be their own gods, that was the moment when our entire race was divided within itself. Death entered our bodies and our minds and utterly transformed us. That was the moment when the subconscious, with all of its anguished vulnerability, entered into every child that has ever been born. I talk much more about what I believe happened in that garden in episode 27 of this series entitled DMT, Doorway into Darkness. Because we chose to be our own little gods, Satan and all the evil creatures of his dimension have access to our conscious and subconscious minds. They view us as their slaves. And without a miracle of God, that's what we are. In our blindness, we're not even aware of what they can do to us. So let's talk about that. Do you believe that all the dark thoughts and desires that plague you are of your own creation? We're programmed from childhood to think they are, and that we have no control over them. And after listening for decades to vile words, often programmed into us through human servants of Satan, such as abusive parents, unfaithful spouses, spiritual wolf leaders, and others, we accept this trash. What we don't realize is that external forces of evil are able to speak within our conscious minds with voices that sound exactly like our own. How do they do it? Easy. They whisper in the first person using the words I and me. Have you heard their slithering lies? They come in 1,000 forms of temptation. My needs just aren't being met in this marriage. I deserve so much more. I can't forgive that person that would show weakness. That guy cut me off. I'm not going to let him get away with that. I look in the mirror and I am really ugly. No one would want to be with me. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. No one loves me. My life is hopeless. Why not end it? No one will care. And they can take the opposite form. I am extremely intelligent. I know a lot about what's going on. If someone disagrees with me, it's because they're stupid. And on, each lying thought specifically designed to attack us at our most vulnerable moments. Those thoughts are not yours unless you accept them as yours. But it gets even worse. Into our subconscious minds are planted false memories to bolster the lies. These are misperceptions and pure fabrications that we accept as true. Added to those are real memories sharpened like daggers by lack of forgiveness. They slash us with despair and self-destruction. This is how spiritual slaves are created, controlled, and destroyed. The source of all this non-human evil is a dimension where Satan is God. Humans can enter into it through many doors by the use of psychedelic drugs such as DMT, through shamanic and occult practices, through astral projection and other out-of-body experiences, yes, and through UFO abductions. We'll be talking about that in a future episode. All kinds of addictions throw open the doors of our conscious and subconscious minds to satanic influence with devastating results. Evil taints everything we touch. It's estimated that 68% of men who claim to be Christians watch porn. This includes pastors and other spiritual leaders. When we are under such power, the voice that speaks to us can sound like God Himself, whispering the sweet, arrogant guidance of hell. No wonder the Christian church is disintegrating. Look around. How many are addicted to alcohol and drugs to find peace? What about addictions to rage that can barely be controlled, or arrogantly slandering others in social media? So many today are addicted to overwhelming fear, to self-pity, and to pride. The world is dying. What is the answer to all of this? Each one of us needs to find true freedom. Being truly free means that you have the wisdom to recognize evil voices and the power to cast them out. But we are slaves. We can't set ourselves free. We need someone to break our chains. The first step is to wake up from our trance and realize our situation. In the New Testament book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 14, the Apostle Paul writes these words, "Awake, you who sleep, arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light." My friend, in that light is freedom, because darkness cannot stand against it. And there's only one person who can bring it to you, only one person who can set you free. Jesus Christ loves you so much that He shed His blood and gave His life so you don't have to be a trance slave of Satan any longer. Your freedom starts with radical repentance for your sin. You confess to Jesus Christ all the evil things you have done and the lies you have believed. You ask Him to forgive you and set you free. And because of His love, that's exactly what will happen. What is the result? A totally new life begins for you. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says this, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, this person is a new creation. The old things are passed away. Behold, new things have come." In John 8:12, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." The light of Jesus Christ awakens and frees us. His presence cleanses us, driving out evil and bringing truth to our deepest levels, including the subconscious. Enslavement to evil trances is broken forever. But this depends on one thing: following Jesus every day. How do you do that? Each day you read God's Word, the Bible. You let it soak into your mind and heart. Each day you pray, first for yourself, giving absolute control of your life into the hands of Jesus the King. Let Him do whatever He wants with your future. He knows what's best for you. Then in His power, you pray for others, forgiving those who have hurt you and doing good for everyone you can. What is the result? Evil beings have no authority over you any longer. In fact, through Jesus and His blood that was shed for you, you have the power to cast them out. But understand this: Satan does not like to lose his slaves. For a period of time, you may face a spiritual and emotional battle. Don't give up. Jesus is fighting for you, and He will prevail. Don't be afraid. He came to set prisoners free. And when you are free, He will use you to reach others with His love. And there is amazing joy in that. How important is all of this? A day of judgment is coming. Ecclesiastes 12:14 says, "For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." That means all of your hidden history, everything you have said and done and experienced, is stored inside your mind in great detail. Consider this story told in the book Hypnotherapy by master hypnotist and teacher Dave Ellman. A woman went into surgery completely anesthetized. When it was over, of course, she remembered nothing about the operation. Then she was hypnotized. Her subconscious mind had heard and remembered every single word that had been spoken by the doctors and nurses through the entire procedure, including things that frightened her. All of it was brought into the open, I'm sure to the consternation of the hospital staff. In Matthew 12:36-37, Jesus Christ gave this warning. "But I say to you that every careless word that people speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." A lifetime of words, all the things we have ever said or written, brought out to be examined. To me, that's horrifying. Our only hope is Jesus' forgiveness and a new life in Him. Have you received it? It begins with a simple prayer of a child. If we can be of help, contact us through the comments section. We will pray for you and with you. Please do like, subscribe, and share our videos with your friends. And if you are one of our regular viewers, I have a special message for you. Over these 28 episodes, you have seen what we're trying to do here at Thorn Crown Studios. But we've had very limited resources. There's much more that we would like to do, including promoting this series to find new viewers and creating some new productions with unique messages. If you would like to participate with us in making all of that possible, we have a Patreon page and a Buy Me a Coffee page. The links are below. Any amount you can give would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much.